Welcome to the latest episode of the Low Production High Value Show, a show for and about entrepreneurs.
Next up, my conversation with Tim Hughes from DLA Ignite. We talk about his new book on social selling and influence and how AI can help your sales. It's good to have a reigning champion back to the show.
Hello, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to have you, Tim.
You're welcome.
So we've known each other for quite some time. We've talked a lot about LinkedIn and social selling. But over the years, and especially more recently with the book, which we're going to get to in a moment, my sense is from you that there's been an evolution. And from your perspective, what's changed with the introduction of AI when it comes to social selling?
I think there's been a massive change, which is what I wrote this book by hand, by the way. I didn't use AI at Christmas 2025, and I took a month off and wrote the book because what I wanted to do was bring together all of the latest research, all of the latest data, all of the latest research that we've been built up over the last 10 years running as a company, and also bring together what we've been doing with AI, and put something out so people can actually learn from it. So to answer your question, I think the key thing from my perspective in terms of AI is that what we're seeing is that people are playing around with it. They're probably not doing the right thing. They're probably replicating existing processes, which in many cases are 30, 40 years old. But what we're also seeing is people are either going down the robocall again, which is classic, let's add AI onto 1980 processes. And of course, if you can make more calls or if you can send out more spam emails, you will increase the number of leads you have. But you will, of course, increase the number of people that you piss off. So, and you show that your company basically doesn't really have ambition and doesn't really understand the world as it is today. And so what we've done is that we see that there's a great place for AI to give people more humanity and to allow people to less worry about things and actually, use AI as a support tool for them. So to give you an example, whenever we run a social selling program, we get a classic bell curve, which is 20% of the people basically are sitting there saying, I want to do this and I can't understand why the management aren't doing it, and they just go and fly. 60% of the people, you're looking to get a 10, 20, 30% change. And 20% of the people are sitting there going, I'm not going to do this at all.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And it happens every single time. The 20% of people that go and do it basically it's the ROI that you get. The key thing for us was to look at that 60% in the middle. And so what we found with AI was ultimately to give them an easy button. So we've actually developed teammates for people that you can roll out. It's a standard application and it enables people to do all the things that they said they didn't have time for, which is, we know that people are out there. The data shows that people are buying based on relationship. So how do you build relationships, and you build relationships at scale? Well, the only way that you're going to do that is by doing that on social media, because that's the platform that allows you to do it. You're not going to build relationships by cold calling people or sending spam emails. Yeah, you might get some sort of transaction, but people buy from people they know, like, and trust, not from total strangers. And so what we've done is that we've actually built an AI platform. We got our first customer just before Christmas, and what people are actually able to do is use the AI to do the heavy lifting. So you may say, I don't have time to create content. Okay, well, the AI does that for you. So, it understands your tone, it understands your ideal customer persona, it understands who your value proposition, you pulled in all the data for your white papers, all the data that you need to actually put to do that heavy lifting. And what we set ourselves before Christmas, when this was in development, was that we talked about, okay, if somebody is not posting on LinkedIn, so they're zero, and we can get them to average, is that transformation? And it's a kind of rhetorical question, because there's a lot of people saying, there's a lot of slop on AI, slop on that. Okay, I understand that, but taking somebody from zero to actually average. Now remember, average means that they're making the target. Yeah. So we've taken the B players and they're now A players. So that is transformation. But because we didn't want to stop there, okay, if as someone, I've been social selling for, 10 years, possibly 17 years. And if we can take people from good to, from average to good to excellent, how can we do that? Now, we believe that we've now created a teammate that actually is creating good, if not excellent, content. So if you go to our DLA Ignite company page, all of that content is basically created by me using the teammate. And so it's all AI created. And so people can decide, they can look at it and go, I think it's shit. Fine. Okay, well, you think it's shit. Other people will look at it because I'm increasing the numbers of the people that are following the page. So there are people that are liking it. And this is the difference, which is that there is this, all of the objections that we basically had to doing social in the past, we're gradually going, tick, we can do that one, we can do that one, we can do that. And that's the fundamental change. And so what we're being able to do is take ordinary people, because the 20% understand they've got to do the storytelling and they'll go and do it. We're able to take the ordinary people, the 60% in the middle, and turn them into the top 20%. So we're now transforming 80% of the sales team rather than 20% of the sales team. And as I said, we're taking the B players and we're turning them to A players. You roll that across the whole of your sales team, that has a massive impact.
It's the proverbial the rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. So we're seeing,
you're taking them from invisible to visible.
Yeah. So we're seeing things like, if you look at the Sixth Sense data. So if anybody's out there, Kerry Cunningham is the person that puts that data together. Go and have a look at his LinkedIn page. Follow him because he's constantly coming out with new data about. No, this is the sort of, he's basically creating what CEB and Gartner did 10 years ago that they've stopped doing it. And, we know that when buyers buy stuff, what they're doing is that they go, well, I'm going to buy a CRM, but I know Steve at Salesforce, and I know Michael at Oracle, and I know Hillary at HubSpot. And they're phoning them up and saying, I'm going to buy a CRM. Do you want to be on a shortlist? And therefore, so they're not necessarily going out and looking for content. They will be, because they bought something 5 years ago, therefore they need to update their knowledge. But the shortlist that they're putting together is usually 5 companies. They know the people. And by the way, we usually get the question about what happens if the person is younger. Well, actually, even if you're in your years, you actually know people and network and know people in those companies. So they're building the shortlist based on those people. Therefore, what you need is a relationship. And you need to be able to build relationships at scale. Why? Because we know that the buying team is now at least 10 or 12 people. And they all bring their own biases, they all bring their own relationships, they all bring their own views and opinions. And it may be that the person that you know, who you've known for 20 years and always buys from you, is on that buying team, but they may not actually have the authority that you think they have. They may have influence, but they may not have authority. So they may get outvoted. So what we're doing is that we're bringing that all together. And what I've done about the book is I'm a new business salesperson. So I've taken my experience of new business and put that into the book. And this time also, because I've self-published it, I've not had the publisher looking over my shoulder saying, you need to put a chapter in about tech and you need to have so it's deliberately, it's a short book. It's 25,000 words, $9.95, whatever currency you are in the world. So it's a cheap book, so you can read it quickly and you can get up to speed. And we've got a whole chapter on where we are with AI and the teammates. 5,000 words on AI and how to use that which is basically what we'd learned by implementing these teammates just before Christmas.
But in the example you gave about CEB and Gartner and so on, I think even in your earlier books you referenced CEB and about the 50+% of the sales journey or the consideration journey of a prospective client occurs before they talk to a salesperson. And now with AI, they're further along because, and I'll use your shortlist example, I can use AI to build a competitive analysis report of those 5 vendors before I talk to anybody. So I actually might take my short list and make it even shorter.
Yes. So there was a podcast recently that said that there's now 2 buying processes. There's a human buying process and there's a machine buying process. It's an AI one. And while they'll probably come together, I'm not saying that that AI is basically buying enterprise software. What I'm saying is that I will, as a we sit in a room, we decide we're going to buy a new payroll system. all of us go out and start searching on the internet. We use our connections, and we probably go on AI, and we run a reports. All of those reports will be different.
But I also think it might enhance the RFP process. It makes the buyer more informed
Yes.
to ask questions they might have overlooked before, but also it makes it more competitive for the vendor. Like, we better show up in the best way possible in
Yeah.
AI.
The other thing that's really important is that the websites now are, or the whole of the internet for the last 20 years has been built for humans. Now we need to have websites built for AI. Now, we need to have a website. Websites are not dead, because we all know that. How do I know if a company exists? I go to the website. But the website isn't necessarily for putting up loads of information that for humans to troll. The website is now for putting up information that the AI will troll. Because what will happen over the next 10 years is that in 10 years' time, we're going to laugh about how much time we spend on the internet, because we just won't do it anymore. What we'll do is we'll get AI to do it. Why I have a dog and bark. And it's one of those things where, we just won't, it'll become retro, like my gramophone or something like that, which is where we will laugh. Do you remember the times we used to spend all that time on now we just press a button. So,
do you remember when we used to Google something?
yeah, do you remember? Yeah, exactly. And now we just, yeah. And now we just use AI to go out and find it, and that's what's going to happen. So all of this stuff about brand, AI doesn't care about your brand. AI doesn't care about emotion. It doesn't have any emotion. AI won't fill any forms to get white papers. If you have white papers that are gated, anything that's gated, AI can't see. So you're in this situation where we're going through this transformation where we have to start moving away, thinking about, what I'm going to do is we're going to write white paper, we're going to gate it, and we're going to collect the emails. And I think that one of the points I want to make is that the whole AI change is not linear. So I've been in social media for 17 years, and I still don't understand. When you sent the questions over, I thought, I mean, it's totally bizarre with all of the data that's out there that people are still cold calling. It died 5 years ago. It just shows that companies don't have any ambition. We've talked to a lot of companies that would prefer to go out of business rather than actually change the way that they actually sell. Vidyard was I think they should be called out. Vidyard is a great example of a company that just refused to basically change the way that they worked. And so we're going through this transformation, but I wrote my first book 10 years ago, and there's still people that are not social selling, or we tried social selling and it didn't work, or all of these things. The data is out there. I show it in the book that the data is there. And the thing is with AI, it's exponential. So this is not about in 17 years' time we're going to be still sitting here going, well, we might be using AI we will be. We will be living. It just is moving so fast. I had a meeting with an old friend this morning in London, and he's actually building an AI agent. He's got an AI native company like us. Basically, he said, can you type in, or do you use voice? I said, well, we type stuff in. He said, oh, that's so like last century. He said, you need to be using voice. And I said, why is that? He said, well, the AI can actually learn better through the voice. Just talk to it like normally. And he said, because what happens with words is that you don't actually use enough for it to actually process. There's not enough context. But if you're talking like I'm talking now, so it's like these are the things that are gonna change, and it's changing so fast. We're able to all the development we do is AI. It's 100% AI. We have no developers, and we're able to spin up MVPs within hours, and so we do it in Claude and we test it in Gemini.
I vibe coded a landing page for my website.
Yeah. I vibe coded
in an hour.
I vibe coded stuff. Yeah. I coded stuff for banners for LinkedIn and stuff, and it's so quick, and the ability to actually create applications at scale is so fast. You've got to get, this isn't about, I'm going to sit around and think about it for 18 months and then we'll again. The train is leaving the station.
Well, to your point about talking, so I use whisper flow. You talk 4 times faster than you type. So if we'll use Claude as an example, I've created a project called Brain Dump Prompt Optimizer. So I'll just have some random thoughts about something I want to, like a hypothetical I want to explore. I'll just dump it into the brain dump prompt optimizer, and I'm just like random thoughts, just talking out loud, and it will create a prompt for me. And then if there's subsequent questions that it wants assistance with for clarification before it finalizes the process, I can answer those questions so much faster. Like question one, blah, 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 question two. And I'm not abandoning typing altogether, but I will say that the adoption of voice, and even if I'm out, instead of listening to a podcast or something comes to mind, I will fire up Claude or ChatGPT and talk to it and
Yeah.
say, can you do this?
Yeah.
Or this is what I'm thinking. Tell me where I'm wrong or whatever.
I was at
But
a dinner party and we were talking about the thalidomide scandal, and people
mhm.
started saying, "When did it happen?" And I just fired up AI and basically talked to it and said, and it came back, and people start asking me questions. It was just one of those things where, where,
Parlor tricks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Whereas once we were kind of happy to go to Google and say, curry houses near me. Now we're actually, because we're most people, many of us are curious for the knowledge, and we know that we can get it, and we just bring it up on our phones.
Well, I've been talking about recently how Google has applied for a patent. And right now, if you Google something, there's the AI summary results at the top of the search page, search result page, and then there's sponsored links, and then there's the organic stuff further down. Well, they've applied for a patent related to personalization, so that when you do use Google and you query something, instead of the AI summaries on the sponsored links, it's going to render on the fly a landing page personalized to your query. And to what you were highlighting earlier, will you still need a website? Absolutely. But this has the potential to mean that people won't visit it other than to verify your existence. But they're going to get the answer they want in this
Yeah, yeah,
rendered
because
on the fly page.
what they want is that the problem that they've always had is that actually people don't want to click on the links because they know that So what happens is that they're trying to create a walled garden, just like Facebook and everybody else, and keep you in it. So absolutely.
Well, and this is why I use Perplexity, because it gets me to the answer rather than the list of links that I have to sift through to get to the point. But I want to go back to, you were talking about like uh, you know, the AI assistant or the AI partner or AI teammate. But some have joked about if you have a broken process and you're bringing AI into your workflow, it's only going to highlight where it's broken. I suppose we can suggest that it would also highlight if your sales process is broken. But you've talked not only now, but in the past about building trust. And I want to get your take on building trust at scale, but I'm going to use the word synthetic assistant or synthetic support. So,
So I'm old enough to remember the introduction of e-commerce and the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust. And the learnings from that was that people thought that if they put websites onto their crappy company, they would be saved. And what they found out was that if they were putting a website on a crappy company, and ultimately the crappy company went to the wall. If people think that they're going to put AI onto their existing company, it's not going to work. This is the opportunity to actually rethink sales and marketing. I mean, as I said, I've spoken to a number of people. They say, "Well, oh yeah, we've got a guy in sales and he's doing some stuff with AI," and it's like, so he's taking, 1980, 1990 processes, and he's got some prompts from some prompt book. This is not going to make the transformation. It will make you the same as everybody else because everybody else is doing that. This is your opportunity to basically leapfrog the competition and actually rethink sales and marketing. And so what we've done is that we've taken our learnings over the last 10 years on social and pulled in an AI teammate. So it allows people to make relationships, build relationships, have conversations at scale. So for example, we've got the first client, and they are now doing, the sales team are now getting 3 meetings a week, 3 conversations a week with their ICP across the sales team, and they've done that within 6 weeks.
And that's compared to 0 before that?
Yeah, so from pretty much from 0 to 1 maybe, because they were cold calling or sending spam to 3. That's the figures that I have so far, and they've done that within the quarter. So they did that within 6 weeks. One of the big issues for any sales leader is, how can I make and build my pipeline within quarter, otherwise I get fired. That actually sorts a particular problem. Now, I'm happy to take the challenge that before AI, the average person was getting 5 meetings per week and getting 5 without AI, but it's our first customer, and it's new, and we're learning, and we expect that 3 to basically go up to 5 or even more. So,
Well, but on that thread, so when a client is onboarded, so I recognize you've built this, but you didn't build it from scratch. What I mean by that is you have used another AI solution, I'm assuming, like you didn't build.
okay, so the first customer was built in Google Gemini,
Okay.
and we subsequently built our own app outside of Google Gemini, and you're now able to connect. Well, you can connect ChatGPT,
Oh, okay.
Google Gemini, and Claude. And we're doing that because of the fact that in many cases, marketing teams are saying to us what they want is an audit facility. So you'd need to have multiple LLMs to do that.
Well, and also some people, especially enterprises, have chosen one racehorse versus
Yeah. So
another.
someone, they'll say we have a strategy for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So
We're a ChatGPT house. Oh no, we're Claude.
yeah.
Like,
And we
it's
always
like,
knew that would be the
yeah.
case. And it's been
Well,
interesting. It's been interesting to see how the CRM vendors have changed, because they used to be the record of the system of record, but they're not anymore. And actually, what's happened is that we've become the system of record. And so what we're able to do within the whole of that process is that you're tracking the whole of the sale within AI, and you're tracking it within the AI and a teammate. So you're now tracking the whole of that process. And so in effect, CRMs have just become a back end for us.
but if the firm that signs on, they're getting I'll call it a baseline out of the box functionality. And then where I'm going with this is this idea of that I, as a salesperson, can build my teammate of choice that knows my voice, my take on things, whatever. But from an ongoing point of view,
Yeah.
every client interaction, so on, so that becomes this perpetual learning situation that the teammate just keeps getting better and better. Not to replace me, but just to make me faster, more efficient, and improve the interaction. Is
Yes.
that?
Yes. So what we've done is that we've taken the learnings for the last 10 years and we've poured that in. I'll come back to that in a moment. So when you go through on board the process, you'll bring in things like, I'm looking down because I'm looking at the slide here. So you're going to be bringing in things like company website, brand guidelines, ICP, customer success stories. You'll use the CRM. You'll probably got some SEO keywords. There will be some data that you will create. So that's synthetic data. So that's the corporate layer that you will have. Then what you will do is that you will bring in a particular layer for each of the different salespeople. So it could be that I sell to public sector and you sell to life sciences, or I sell to GlaxoSmithKline and you sell to AstraZeneca. So what we need is our own personal tone of voice, the particular industry domain experience, the particular client knowledge, and we've also pulled in storytelling skills, sales enablement skills, and we've also created synthetic data as well. So interestingly, as an aside, they basically said they wanted to employ a sales enablement person, and we've actually created a teammate for that instead. And so, but there is still a role for sales enablement, which is the fact that the teammate, what you do when you onboard it, it's onboarding it. You're in effect onboarding. It's equivalent of onboarding a person. You're giving it instructions. You're giving it objectives. And what you need to do is that you will need to check those every month. The best way to describe it is that quite often when you're using a teammate, it will sometimes either forget what you're saying, it can hallucinate, it can decide to go off. It will find the quickest way to somewhere. So you may want it to go there, but it will basically find the quickest way, which may be not what you want it to do. So you need to check it every single month. So there's still a role in the organization for that. Now, we're going to provide services for that, though there's a role for sales enablement in terms of getting involved in the AI process and becoming the AI subject matter expert, the SME within the business.
We'll be back in a moment. And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins, Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com. Now, back to the show.
Well, I was just listening to the Diary of a CEO podcast yesterday, and Stephen Bartlett was talking to Scott Galloway of Prof G and the Pivot. But Stephen was talking about in his own company, he has a kind of a finance person who's looking for deals, either acquisitions, partnerships, or whatever. He said, initially we thought we were going to need about 5 people in that group or department or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, no, Molly is a team of 1, but has a bunch of agents and like purpose built for this one is just constantly doing research and looking for companies that meet the following criteria. And then the other one might just be media monitoring related to either an industry sector or competitor or like whatever. But is there still a need for a human being in the process? Absolutely. But how the human being and the role that they play, that's evolving at a rapid pace.
Yeah, so we're seeing we've not had it from our first customer. We're building based on their requirements, but we see in the future that there would be a requirement for marketing in terms of constantly looking at keywords, constantly looking at what your competitors are doing, and going out into the market and comparing. And so yeah, absolutely. Do we need to have less people in marketing? Well, I actually believe in the view that you shouldn't be letting people go because of AI. I think that's a short-termism. It's what happened during the e-commerce thing, and all the people that did that regretted it. What we should be doing is that we should be giving AI. So there's 2 things. If you've got people already, you should be empowering them with AI and actually using that as your growth engine. Rather than actually saying what we're going to do is lay people off. Obviously, Stephen Bartlett is in a situation where, like us, we're a startup. Therefore, we can grow the business actually with very, very few people. But if you're if you've already got the people, give them AI, empower them, and that's growth.
Well, to your point, I'm in your camp as well. I'd rather empower and make some efficiency gains with the existing team, because also you start to begin to question, well, if I were to hire, given this new landscape, where would I hire to do what? And because you don't want someone to be less productive, but also you want them to like enjoy their work and feel challenged and engaged, because there's been talk about that too. So how do you create a situation where they'll thrive? But I still firmly believe the conversation I've been having of late about this idea of people that are further along in their career have the wisdom of experience and judgment and discernment skills that, enhanced by AI, makes them a pretty powerful resource. For the new entrants, the 20-somethings just entering the work world that are AI literate but don't have the wisdom of experience, part of me thinks that I can now plug into the matrix as a 20-something and I can't expedite experience, but I can expedite learning, which I think is like, wow. I mean, I have an MBA. If I, 20 some years ago was deciding about doing an MBA, when I realized in 6 months, I can just plug into the matrix and not achieve everything, but get a large portion of the teachings of the MBA program essentially for free and tailored to my learning style.
Yep.
It's just a different world. But to kind of keep going down that path, when you're talking to sales leaders versus sales team members, what is the framing of their mindset when it comes to AI? Again, they're not looking to lay people off, or maybe some are, but is it about efficiency gains, doing a better job of the prospective client interactions? Like, what are their priorities, or where are they seeing not just the number of conversations, but where are they seeing some early wins or validation of their
I think
hypothesis?
there's a certain amount of FOMO with all business leaders are basically saying you need to do something with AI, though most people don't know what to do. So we have, I've come across a lot of people saying so and so's playing around with it, and
But sorry to interject, do you encourage people to play a bit as part of the
well, I no,
consideration
well,
phase?
I'm more of the buy rather than build, but I'm biased because I've got something that people can buy and immediately can make can make an impact within 6 weeks, rather than someone plays around with something for 6 months.
Well, and they have the added benefit of learning from the mistakes that you made or the trials and
Exactly,
tribulations.
exactly. You don't go out and buy you go and buy Microsoft Word. Why? Because Microsoft know how to build a word processor. You don't build it yourself. Even if you wanted to try vibe coding it, they know more about it than you. The same, we buy Zero for our finance system because when the government changed the tax system, it's Zero that have to sort it, not me. So there's that old argument about do you buy or you build. I think that there's in the research that I'm doing, there's a lot of people that actually don't know what to do, and they won't admit it because they can't admit it because they can't admit So our job is to do a lot of missionary work, which is to go out and come on podcasts like this and talk about what we the art of the possible and what could be.
Well, are they lying to themselves about what AI, like there's FOMO, but then are they clouding their vision with unrealistic expectations of where and how AI can benefit them, or?
Yeah, I think we've probably reached the point where everybody has got a copy of some AI in some shape or form. And I'm talking about the people that are going to use it, not the people that are saying they're not going to use it. And they've probably got some prompts from somebody somewhere, and they fed them into that and probably got not a very good answer. And that's because they don't really they've not got the data piece. I mean, just today marketing profs basically came out with an article saying the most important thing about your AI is your data, which is the first time I've seen anything on a sort of marketing. I've seen people like Databricks and Snowflake and people like that talking about it because that's their business. But because I'm working in IT, I kind of see those things. But it's the first time I've seen it in a sort of a Joe average marketing magazine like Marketing Profs. So, I mean, I've contacted people and they say, oh, no, we're all human here. And they go, well, you may be human here today, but you won't be there tomorrow.
What do you tell sales leaders to properly set their expectations about where AI in its current form today can deliver on its promise versus, dispelling some myths and properly configuring their expectations?
I think it's really important as part of the onboarding process that expectation is set. I talk to all kinds of people. I was talking to a really cool RevOps company, and oh yeah, we've just brought in this CRO who's got 20 years experience, and the CRO said, yeah, I've got systems that I've been using for 20 years, and I just, oh god, yeah. You're a really sexy RevOps company.
Yeah.
You've got somebody with 20-year-old experience, 20 years of experience, but it's 20-year-old experience. It's
Yeah.
like, come on.
Do you want the combustion engine or the EV?
That's an input. You need to be measuring your salespeople on how many meetings they're getting, because that's the output. And so we had a guy that we trained, right, who went to the yard, and he was when he was working for us, he was getting 35 high quality ICP meetings a week. 35. He complained that he had too many meetings. I'm not sure there's anybody else out there in the sales world. So he went to Vidyard and he went down to 10. And we said, why are you only doing 10? He said, I could do a lot more, but I said, I can't be bothered. Why? Because I said, since if I do more than 10, I put my head above the parapet. And he said, they're constantly telling me I have to make calls and send emails, and it's a waste of time. He said, I can do 10. And
he looks like a hero.
but they basically said, we know you, okay, but you've got to send more emails. He said, you won't get more. No, you're not listening to us. And then the other salespeople basically said, so can you give me your sequences? What sequences are you using? It's like, I don't use a sequence. This is about selling in the modern world and going out and building relationships on social media and having conversations. And we talked to them for 3 quarters, and then they shut their European business down. It's like, what a surprise. Because you're measuring the wrong things and you have your salespeople doing the wrong thing. The thing is that, one of my concerns is that what people are going to do is that they're going to use AI as they're doing things at the moment, rather than seeing this as an inflection point and seeing it as a way of changing and reimagining the way they do things and doing it better.
We're listed on a website called Clutch, and our rankings there, our client reviews, press releases related to the awards that we've received from Clutch and beyond, all serve to help us get discovered by Google and more recently by AI search. So it just becomes this flywheel. So that's okay. That's the front end or the awareness phase. Then they book time on my calendar. I have a call with them. I use Granola to record the call. And it's AI based. I take the notes from said call, I put it into AI and the project I have for proposal writing, and it makes this the best proposal that has ever been written by. And the number of compliments I get from prospective clients about how comprehensive it is. It's like, I'm still the human being involved in all that process, but the efficiency gains.
It's a great example, Andrew.
Yeah, it's just
and the time saving. I run my own podcast, and I have the time that I need to actually be involved in it. The podcast that we run on a Friday, that my French guy is the producer, he's totally automated it. But he's still the human in control of it.
Yeah, there's still quality control, but
yeah,
we're talking now today, but we're recording on Riverside. We're going to use the AI functionality of Riverside to come up with clips, both video and audiogram. The transcript is happening automatically. We'll be mining the transcript. And to your point, it's like, well, I use Claude to build PowerPoint now, and Gamma as well. Why would I build a PowerPoint from scratch anymore? Why bother?
Yeah. I see. I'm old enough to remember when computers were first introduced, and what happened was that the management said, you're going to do your own typing now, and there was a revolt. I mean, people will laugh because everybody does their own typing, but 25% of the workforce resigned and said, I'm going to go and work for a company where I don't have to do my own typing. All the companies that they resigned to go to no longer exist. And they fired we had a sales secretary. We had, every sales team had somebody that basically did your typing for you.
I knew someone at IBM, and when they introduced email internally at IBM, he said, I had a leader who called everyone together from the team. He said, as of this date, if you want to reach me, it will only be via email. Other than communicating with me, you can do whatever you want, any way you want, etc. But as of this date, if you want to reach me, it will be via email. And he just put a line in the sand that, in a sense, he was, burning his.
And it's exactly the same in terms of there's going to be massive change that's going to take place, and the people that are going to win are the people that are going to embrace AI and understand that this isn't about taking your job; it's about enhancing it and allowing you to do things that you probably didn't have time or the inclination to do before, and that's some of the exciting thing about it.
Well, and so beyond your own work, is there a person or a company that you're seeing that, I'll call it, exhibits that or is already illustrating sort of the target end state of AI enabled or AI powered approach to sales?
We've been training a number of people at Salesforce, and I don't know whether it's because of the fact that they're getting the corporations saying, you need to change your mindset. But we've got a number of AEs there that are absolutely killing it in terms of.
But are they coming to you independent of Salesforce, or Salesforce is sending them your way?
They're coming to us independently of Salesforce. At Salesforce, you get an amount of money to spend on training.
Well, it's interesting to hear that they're, as you said, if they've got money to spend and they're free to spend it where they wish, it's very cool to hear that they're.
So
it's about personal development in a way.
Yeah. So the first one was because the first team that we got was because we knew that the leader there, and then it's one of those things where you've got word of mouth where people are going, because they're all measured on the number of meetings. And we've got one sales guy. He gets the highest number of meetings above every other salesperson in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So he, as an AE, he gets 7 meetings a week on a consistent basis, and he's selling into public sector, which is a a particularly difficult one to get meetings with. So and we've got one of the other guys. He was with the top salesperson for the whole. He sold the biggest deal for Europe and Middle East and Africa. So, we're seeing great success coming from those things. All of those things. Whenever we go into Salesforce Tower in London and we see them, they're always going to people. You need to talk to Tim, and you need to do. Which is kind of embarrassing because I'm a Brit and I'm very modest, but it's been great seeing the way that we've built the referral base just within the.
But is that indicative of, I mean, I count myself fortunate, I'm sure you do the same, in that having a small enough company and the autonomy to choose, like I'm using multiple AI tools because each of them have their strengths. Every week, Chat just did an update this week, and then next week, Claude's going to do something. It's like I'm racing on multiple racehorses
Yes.
because there's and at any given time, one's further ahead, etc. But as we were talking about earlier, if I'm an enterprise, I can't, from just an IT protocol, compliance, governance, etc., I can't have all of my employees going rogue. And so you're doing a bit of from the ground up, but what kind of conversations have to be had at leadership levels, be they sales leaders or even higher, about adoption and the business case?
Okay, so first and foremost, from a governance perspective, I'll answer that, which is if you're building into the data, the brand guidelines, what we found is that you need to enhance that. And the keywords and that, what you're doing is that you're getting content that's created that meets the brand guidelines policy. We've also built into it a QA and an accountability agent, which basically does a double check on it, which is where we've actually been using two different LLMs. So you'll write it in one and you'll check it in the other. And that's really the conversation. I mentioned that because what happens is that you have that conversation with marketing and they kind of tick the box, but you then have that conversation with the CFO and the CEO, because they're making that if anything, they want to make sure that people are basically on brand and are saying things that are legal, decent, and honest and truthful, and they're not going rogue, as you said.
And what do you find? So Claude, I mean, most people, especially in the content space, find Claude to be the better writer, and you can tune it for better capture of voice and tone and style, etc. What is it about Gemini as a checking mechanism that makes for a symbiotic relationship between the two?
So basically, it's really about having the having two different LMMs, and as you say, what we have is this space race where each week one gets better than the other, and what we're doing is that we found Claude is better, especially around the development stage and as you say, the writing, and we found that Gemini is kind of better for the checking perspective. Next week, you ask me the question, I may tell you it's the other way around.
And there could be a totally new one.
Yeah, it could be. And so, but what we're trying to do is it's about making sure that you've got that check and that governance, and you've got the guardrails in place, not just for the conversation that we have with marketing, but the conversation we have with the CFO and the CEO and the board, really, which is, how do we make sure that even though I could ring somebody up and tell them to F off, there doesn't seem to be guardrails around that. When it comes to social media, people kind of want them extra special guardrails.
Well, and something I wanted to ask you about, like, so beyond Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT, all of which I use, but Claude the most. But over and above Claude, I also use it's from UK and Portugal is Dojo AI.
Okay.
They just raised 6 million on a 30 million valuation. They're an agentic front end, but they're purpose built. They are built for agencies. And there's less of a requirement on me to write a prompt and more just have a conversation with it. And the way it's built, it will draw upon a number of pre-built agents to do the task that I've asked. And so where I'm going with that is when you were talking about, you've seen numerous people like, oh, I'm going to just copy and paste this prompt from, I paid somebody on Gumroad $9.99 for a document filled with prompts. Versus, are you in the camp more of forget copying and pasting somebody else's prompt and have a conversation with your LLM, or in your case, the solution they've bought from you, and have that dialogue so that the prompt ultimately is optimized for you.
Yeah, so prompts were great 2, 3 years ago, but they're not really relevant now. We've kind of moved on, and it's about having a discussion. So you don't need to be the best prompter in the world. All you need to do is talk to it and say, "Look, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. What do you think?" And then it will come up with an answer. But the AI will then ask you a question, and you can, it's a discussion. And I was talking to someone the other week, and they were saying that they have this every week. They have a meeting they have to go to where they drive for an hour, have the meeting, and then drive an hour back. He said he spends the whole hour there and the whole hour back talking to AI, basically throwing up, doing what you're doing in terms of I've got these couple of ideas. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and of course, with all these things, it's a bit, you've got to get used to using the muscle.
Yeah.
And once you actually start thinking about it and then saying, things like, what have I got wrong? When I was trying to build some banners for the top of my LinkedIn profile, and he just said, I can't do this. And then I just said, well, what am I doing wrong? And it said, I'll write code a program for you to do it.
I posted on LinkedIn recently, and I said, have some fun. And what I did was I went to each of the LLMs and I said, how would an agency use you to compete against me? And how can I use you to compete against them or respond? And it was an idea that came to like, oh, this is what I love about it is like, there is no, like, it is a safe environment to experiment. Like, I'm just asking an idea. And I've also gone to and saying, like, here's my business. This is what we do, how we do it, etc. Help me brainstorm other ideas that are adjacencies that follow sort of like retainer based. And I was like, oh, okay. So now I've got like 5 different ideas that I can explore. Like, do I want to road test them with a client, or like, anyway, it's this AI. I have a lab available to me from my phone. And if I wanted to, I told a friend, she's like, I'm struggling to write my book. And I said, she commutes, she teaches at a college and she's got her own business. And she's in the car for 45 minutes to commute. I said, talk your book. And she said, yeah. And she sent me a note saying, I can't thank you enough. You don't know how many chapters I've knocked off just making use of the 45 minutes in the car. And yeah, anyway, enough about me. As we come to a close, what does a top performing salesperson leveraging AI look like in 2030?
Really good question. I think that AI is, just as much as people had briefcases and things, and there were certain things that we had in sales. I think that, AI is the teammate, is the team member. Hopefully by 2030, we'll probably have more communication between the AIs. I mean, that's coming pretty soon. Also, collective consciousness, so we can actually get teammates to ask each other questions. So, what we need to do is, if the teammate doesn't know, it goes out and finds the answer. But these are probably actually going to be coming soon rather than 2030. I mean, sales is always, that there will still be a hand signing the check and the contract. There will still be a handshake, and still business will be taking place between humans.
Do you foresee, right now you're building teammates for specific salespeople? Without giving away your product roadmap necessarily, do you envision, I'll call it an enterprise sales matrix built on AI, meaning there's, like, for the sales leader, there's AI functionality that serves their role. Then you've got the teammates, but like there's more, maybe this ties back to that idea of the interplay and interconversation that you were alluding to. So basically the teammates, AI-based teammates become a bit of a hive for the
Yes.
enterprise.
I mean, collective consciousness is good and bad because, having worked in the corporate, you get quite a lot of stuff basically pushing down, and the stuff that pushes down often actually suffocates the innovation. So we need to make sure that there's still an element of, we need to make sure that there's a certain amount of free thinking, but having the ability to, when you're in the office and you go out, I go over to Andrew and say, Andrew, you've worked in this area. What would you do in this thing? And actually having the AI doing that, or maybe having the AI going out and saying, you sell to public sector. I work in life sciences. How do you work in is there something I can learn from a regulated industry? And that sort of stuff, I think would be really useful.
Well, I mean, I suppose there were early signs of that with like the likes of like Gong.io, where it was capturing all these disparate phone calls or conversations with clients. But to your point, how do I, as a sales leader or senior management, call the insights from my broader team about the kinds of objections they're hearing, the kind of things that they've used to overcome? And to your point, if I'm selling life sciences and I had some wins, can my learning in that as a part of the business be transferred to someone who's in an equally regulated industry, but nonetheless a different one? Well, I'm glad I could offer that.
I just noticed we're at time, Andrew. So
Yeah, no, that's cool. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Always, for those on YouTube, there's the book. I highly recommend. You can read it in a day.
Yeah.
And
I
even
take
though
that I'm
yes, well, having read all of your other books before this, another great read. I've left a review online for you.
Thank you very much. And if anybody reads it, please reach out and contact me. You can get hold of me on LinkedIn, and please leave a review, a 5-star review on Amazon.
Thank you as always.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.